The opinions expressed in the Brothers-in-Law show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal professional legal advice.
Thanks for tuning into Brothers-in-Law on Go Country 105. I'm Larry Mandel.
And I'm Rob Mandel.
And we've been trial attorneys here in Los Angeles for over 40 years.
On our show, we will discuss current events, talk about legal issues, and have some very entertaining guests stop by. So stay tuned every week for Brothers on Law right here on Go Country 105.
Brothers on Law. Good morning, everyone. I'm Larry Mandel.
I'm Rob Mandel.
And we are Brothers on Law. Hey, Rob, what I want to say first is Debbie, mortgage mom, she is one sharp lady.
She's great.
Yeah.
She
has a great show.
We love coming after her.
Yeah. So, Rob, remember when I was in my teenagehood and we had a plant that was growing in our pot?
We?
Well, maybe it was me.
Yeah.
Association there, right?
Yeah. That's Kyle Shelley talking on the other mic there, and we're going to introduce him in a sec.
So anyway, I had a pot with a plant in it that was growing. And what I had done is I had got
pot with a pot plant. Let's get right to it.
All right, but
okay.
wait here. And I had some seeds that I had thrown in there, and I got these seeds from a friend, and it turned out they were marijuana seeds. And that plant just kept on growing and growing and growing. And my mom was actually very proud of it. It was growing outside, and she would water it, and she would fertilize it. She had no idea it was a marijuana plant.
Right. She called it a bonsai plant. Yeah. Because that's what we told her it was. It's a bonsai plant, Mom.
So ultimately, one of our relatives, my Aunt Rosalie, came by and says, Eleanor, my mom, why are you growing a marijuana plant? And it's like, oh, I got hell for that one.
Well, then she said, it's not marijuana. It's a bonsai bush.
Right. Yeah. Until she confronted me, and I had to admit, yeah, it was a marijuana plant.
All right. Well, speaking of marijuana, we have with us Kyle Shelley, who is a cannabis activist and an industry veteran. Kyle has over a decade of experience helping people experience and explore this powerful but amazing plant in many ways. So welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thank you for having me. An absolute pleasure. Really.
Welcome, right. Kyle.
So tell us, what do you do? What aspect of the industry are you in?
I am currently working for Sweet Flower. It is a cannabis boutique. We are working to end the stigmata associated with a lot of the dark spaces that are usually associated with the Los Angeles dispensary. So
okay,
yeah.
What's a boutique? Okay, you want to go ahead?
Well, okay.
No, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead with the boutique.
So, what is a cannabis boutique?
Think of it as a place that you can come in and get a full service experience. We will ask any of your questions. You can casually browse and leave. There is absolutely no pressure, but our goal is really just to inform you about how you would want to consume, be it rubs or be it smoking or even the concentrates as well. So
gummy bears.
Gummy bears are incredibly popular, but we
say
don't make them much in bears anymore because of the new regulation. It can't
no
appear
bears.
any
can't look like a kid's candy.
Yeah, I can't encourage children to consume it. No more pictures of food on the packaging. So lots of rules.
So let's say somebody comes in and they're confronted with all these different items. What do you suggest they do?
Ask them what they're looking to do is really the most important place to start. We're finding more and more that the plant itself is not just up or down. It's not just this one way. There are so many different chemicals that play into the effect that really the best bet is, do you want to play video games? Do you want to sit on the couch? Do you want to mow your lawn? Like what is it?
Can you mow your lawn?
You absolutely can.
Okay.
We have strains that are more catered to accountants. We have strains that are catered to coders, people that really...
Lawyers? You got some lawyer strains?
I'm sure.
Lawyers.
I would have some stuff that I could definitely recommend.
Okay.
It is
That's
really
kind of
incredible
weird,
how we can negate a lot of the negative stereotypes by just really catering to what you're looking for.
So this is totally different than a marijuana high back in the day where people would smoke the marijuana.
Night and day. This is... Strength has increased necessarily, but it also has increased in variety. So the common, we'll call them your illegal, your trap shops, they're all over town, but they're pushing dank bud, quote unquote. And that is just the strongest stuff you can find. the whatever, it's going to be there.
And there's some dangers with that. Can you explain?
There is, predominantly not leading to testing. You can have a lot of negative effects that come from chemicals that are added during growing. There are lots and lots of new players that are coming out with fertilizers and all sorts of stuff.
Non-organic, would you say?
Non-organic specifically, but just not even tested or regulated or perhaps even real.
There's a
lot
gray
of
market.
Wives' tales. Yeah, there's a definite gray market on additives. That's not going to be the case when it comes to true recreational registered cannabis that is licensed. All of that is tested. It is like organic is a federal regulation, but it is far exceeding in quality and testing than any sort of organic testing would be from the FDA.
So I would say that you would dissuade people from going to these so-called non-legal shops. Right?
I would.
For those reasons, any other reasons?
Yes and no. The biggest problem with overregulation, I do feel California has stepped a little far in how it's taxed, and I think that is encouraging a black market. You do have a lot of people that need to consume large quantities for medicinal purposes. The market, as it's been regulated, has pushed that out of their price barrier, unfortunately. So when you talk about somebody coming in to make a pure concentrate oil that they're going to render down potentially like a pound of cannabis to become a concentrated oil about the size of a coffee cup, they'll be consuming that in drops. It has lots of effects. We've known for AIDS patients suffering from different
chronic
side effects.
Pain.
Yes, chronic pain.
Yeah.
So that is an unfortunate side effect where we are seeing people that are just priced out. And so that is a point where you may have to seek a gray market again. Currently, there is a process of regulation that is stepping through. The unfortunate problems are somewhere around 40 to 45% of the price that you pay in a recreational, quote unquote, dispensary, boutique, anywhere that sells legal cannabis truly legally. The markup is 40 to 45%.
And to pay the taxes.
To pay the taxes. That's just to pay the taxes.
Right.
And so that has really priced a lot of people out. Testing can also vary in price, so that also plays an effect. And so I think as we start getting hopefully more and more licenses issued, they'll start to hopefully collect some more money in the pool and be able to bring a lot of those taxes down. There is some bills that are trying to do so, but
that's my question. Is there a movement to get those taxes reduced? Because that seems prohibitive to somebody, the average person that wants to go in there and buy something and try it out and see if it's beneficial. They're going to be priced out of that market.
Exactly. There is a cultivation tax on per ounce, and it is $9.25. We did vote for it. Unfortunately, I voted for a different one at the time, but it's what we're with now. There are bills that are calling in to lower that to about, I believe, an 11% from 15% on the actual excise tax, and then to eliminate for a number of years the cultivator's tax. And so that would help us hopefully combat the black market. And
I think that it's baby steps in a way.
It really is.
We wanted to get it legalized, so we didn't have this stigma and we didn't have a culture of crime surrounding it. And so we got that far, but now we have to iron out some of these other things, it sounds like. Is that right?
It is. I am a little frustrated. The medicinal market was an incredibly effective tax collector. The recreational market is not. We are not exceeding our goals by any means for what they projected. And I don't like how minimal it was defined of what goes where. We appropriated specific amounts to specific places. They don't have to necessarily use it certain ways. Whereas versus there was a lot of Colorado, for example, did, I think, one of the better jobs of making sure that the schools get the largest chunk. This is to improve life in the future. And I don't see a lot of those steps here, unfortunately.
Have you suffered or been injured by someone else's negligence? When you need a legal team that will stand up for what is right, won't give up the fight and obtain justice, call 818-886-6600. Mandel Trial Lawyers specializes in personal injury cases of all types. Whether it's a car accident, product or premises liability, dog bite, or a catastrophic injury, Mandel Trial Lawyers are there for you when the fight is worth it. Call now for your free consultation. 818-886-6600. Let the scales of justice tip in your favor.
Give us an overview of the current legal picture overall of what's going on in the industry. In other words, who can sell, who can buy, who can cultivate, and where are we at in terms of having legal dispensaries versus the non-legal?
That's about 3 questions in one.
Yeah.
Are you with it?
Yeah, there was a
it,
few.
Kyle?
I hope I can get them all.
Start with the first one.
Right. So to start, who can sell would be anybody that is licensed under the Cannabis Bureau, California Cannabis Bureau, CCB. They are acting kind of as a spinoff of our state alcohol bureau, and so there's a lot of regulations and inspections and diligences that have to be involved, and then of course taxes. That's the most important part.
But it's hard to get one of those licenses, is it not?
It is. It is a very lengthy process, and it is expensive. And
How expensive?
I have not done a current legal license, but depending on what consultants you hire, it could potentially be $500,000 to $1 million by the time you're
That's
done.
insane.
Yeah. With liquor licenses now, they're quoting at just under $500,000 by the time you get your inspections and insurance and under that. So just open a bar now is getting there.
Yeah. Well, I guess for good reason, but I mean, it does seem like it becomes more of that's inviting big business, big corporations.
Monopolies.
And monopolies.
It does give an advantage to what you say, large chip.
How do we stop that? Or we don't?
I think it is going to be a very lengthy process of trial and error. I think they have recognized that the tax dollars collected are nowhere near reflective of the population consuming. And so this has been an ineffective change. We were collecting more tax dollars under medical. We need to figure that out.
And a medical license didn't require that kind of money, did it?
No. Medical licenses, you could spend $100 on one. You could go to Venice and spend $300 for one on the beach if you're a tourist. But the average person could get one for under $40 safely.
So that was my
question.
question.
What I meant, though, was a medical license
to sell, which,
Yeah.
again, is another lengthy process. We were technically a collective. And so you could have a grower's license, which was a little bit more, allowed you to have more plants and some of those things, and you could support a collective as a grower. And they were a little bit more, but it allowed you a lot more leeway with travel and some of those things, as versus what we still have is just basically the same as decriminalization. If you're under an ounce, you're okay.
So I wanted to understand something for our audience. They used to be the medicinal shops, right?
Right.
What happened to those?
There are still some that exist. They're less and less so in Los Angeles. A lot of the places that are more, how should I say, geared towards patient wellness are still classifying themselves as much as possible as medicinal. If you personally you can still get a medical license, which would exempt you from the state recreational tax. There are still lots of gray that they're sorting out about which ones they're going to accept, who's going to be able to actually write them, where's the database going.
How do you determine, let's say you're driving down the road or something, it's medicinal versus recreational?
There is no way of determining any sort of separation in that aspect, even legally, I would say. I would unfortunately put it to this problem that if you have enough money and you hire good enough lawyers, you would be able to quite easily defeat most things, unfortunately.
So these medicinal shops did not then just automatically convert to recreational shops, it sounds like.
Not all of them. A lot of them did apply for licenses. For a lot of them, the thing was we already had Prop D, which was several years ago, which actually purged out a lot of the medical shops that had gone through and followed all the steps to legally get registered. And they basically just put themselves on a list because it was only the first 2,000 some odd original registered dispensaries were allowed on. Again, that gave a lot of power to early market adopters, people with friends that were able to grease the wheels a little bit and get their licenses a lot quicker, were able to hold on to the market percentage for the last few years until we got to recreational, and so a lot of them have been in the position to swap over.
Wow. And tell us about Sweet Flower then.
Sweet Flower is a new company that is seeking to end the stigma. We do actually a lot more like pain rubs and balms, I would say, than your traditional dispensary, quote unquote.
But you are a dispensary.
Yes, I guess the
Recreational?
word is just cannabis retail location.
Okay.
So we don't have to follow the lingo anymore.
Right.
We
CRL.
something like that.
Okay.
Where for license purposes, you have distributors, you have growers, and they're testers, and so there are varying licenses that are issued depending on which ones you need and how you're transporting it. If you're going to be doing delivery, there's lots of different things. So we actually hold different licenses depending on which location.
How many licenses do you hold?
I am not
Sweet.
specifically
Sweet
allowed
flower.
to talk about that, but
You're not.
they are expanding through different locations as they can. So there are currently lots of things in the works, I should say.
So the efficacy of the rubs.
Yeah.
Efficacy of the rubs.
Yes, Robert. Thank you.
No, of course, that's actually a great spot because there are some that are what we call transdermal that are going to penetrate the skin and absorb, but for the most part, topical application is going to be non-psychoactive, meaning you're not going to be
Get high.
affected and get high.
Is that because it's more based on CBD versus THC?
No, not necessarily. Actually, THC topically is really good for pain relief.
It
and
is.
so you need some THC to help balance out, but we're finding that it's actually a combination of CBD and THC in varying levels that provide different reliefs, but they all kind of have what we call entourage effect, and it's just the group of these different chemicals interacting together to give you an overall effect that's balanced.
And what is the difference between the two chemicals?
THC and
Yeah.
CBD.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's a little hanging molecule arm. They're all in the same cannabinol type classification. So,
But one gets
they're-
you high and one
right.
doesn't.
There are
right?
cannabinoid receptors in your body, and so CBD has a tendency to help reset those, whereas THC is what absorbs into those and gets you that high effect. And so as you're consuming mass quantities of THC, they actually, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but one of the strongest forms of ingesting it, people think it's dabs, but it's actually tinctures. So the medicinal, like we were talking about concentrating it down, medicinally, a lot of the people that are taking those are having extreme pain from varying illnesses and stuff like that. And it's a very help to them. But that is so effective that they could be incredibly impaired. So CBD has been very helpful to help curb some of that back
Balance
down.
it out.
Yeah.
See, my understanding is for like a sleep aid, okay, not to get high, but a sleep aid, like 5 milligrams of CBD and 5 milligrams of THC, is that there's some kind of balance that helps people sleep?
Exactly. And that's coming more with the entourage effect because they're finding CBN itself as another form of cannabinol that is actually better for restful sleep, whereas CBD is going to help you get there. CBN is going to help you feel the effects of it better. So there is hundreds of profiles that we're mapping and sequencing as best as we can to really figure out how they work in combination to really give these effects, because everybody is so different. You and I could all eat the same exact thing and we would all report very
good
different
point.
effects.
We're Larry and Rob Mandel, the brothers-in-law, here on Go Country 105. Do you have a legal issue you need help with? We want to hear from you.
Find us on Instagram and send us a message. Then tune in on Saturdays at 8 a.m. right here on Go Country 105.
How about that story about the kid? Was it you, Rob, that was growing that plant? Can you now grow plants?
You absolutely can.
And how much can you grow?
You can have 6 plants, and this is where it gets a little odd because the term is 6 plants in any stage of their life. The common form of growing is actually cloning. So if there is not been a legal challenge that, to my knowledge, yet, but as long as you're cloning and not overproducing enough to draw attention that you would be in an illegal space, you are fairly safe because a clone is just the exact cutting of the same plant. So 6 plants is a lot. You're talking pound and a half per plant per harvest. Black market price, that's anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 safely.
Wow.
So
Because they get big.
They do and they don't. We've developed this whole system of processes to actually sea of green as a term, scrogging, but it's actually just nesting. So if you're familiar with like trellising apple plants or citrus trees, I should say as well, that it's just the same process of spreading your leaf foliage out for maximizing growth. And so you can really grow a lot of density in a small space now.
The downside of that is you really don't know what you're getting. I mean, I guess if you grow it and you try it out, whereas if you go to a store or shop like yours, then you're going to at least have some more of an idea of the strength and what it can do for you, as opposed to just getting high from it.
Definitely, there have been geneticists working on this since the 80s, actually. So we do have a nice idea of where it's getting. However, growers are finding that environment is a bigger part of the end result than the genetic start. So really how you treat the plant and how you care for it is going to give you a far greater effect and range change than just picking a seed, unfortunately.
But what about driving after you smoke some weed?
Or
ingested cannabis, I should say. That's probably the better way of putting it.
There is no current correlation to THC level and impairment level. And I think that's a big distinction, because people that do consume certain types do develop very high tolerances comparatively. They're not how we would develop alcohol tolerances per se, where we're still measuring alcohol impairment and there is still relative. I would equate it more to like coffee, or there is a barrier that it is, you are going to have slight motor skill function impairment on certain chemicals, but other ones may not be noticeable at all.
But if you're pulled over by the police,
yeah, that was my question.
And they're going to have you do a field sobriety test where you touch your finger to your nose and you walk a straight line, things of that nature. I would suggest that if you are you detected as being impaired, you're going to get arrested.
If you're detected as being impaired, you would be arrested regardless. That's pharmaceuticals, that's alcohol, that's coffee. If you go in for it one day.
See what's in here.
But you could get a DUI from being high on cannabis, correct?
You can. The only way currently that with the way your rights work, they can't go in and do a lot of testing aggressively to get that because of the way it works. And they can't prove that your THC level was directly at the time of it, because someone that consumes a lot is going to have a far higher level consistently, even if they hadn't, or even if they were, like say somebody had quit for several weeks and they're working off the fat content that had stored those molecules, they would still be testing really high, even though they would be incredibly sober.
So the absorption level is different than alcohol, where they can track.
Yeah, it's not correlative. Keep your mouth shut, I guess, is the easy, long and short of it. The only way that you can directly be charged with it is if you admit to it. So
still not admit.
Yeah,
but still not a good idea.
That smoking joint is probably enough.
Yeah,
but
the car is full of
that's
the
not
fumes.
mine. I don't know the dog. So
it's still not a good idea, because as we handle accident-related cases, you don't want to be impaired in any way, shape, or form when you're behind the wheel.
Right,
and you absolutely need to be aware of what you're consuming is a big part of how you know how you're going to be impaired. And that is a nice benefit of market moving towards regulation, is because you can take that same CBD edible you've been getting every time, and all of a sudden it's not going to be THC because the maker screwed up or packaged the wrong thing or something like that.
Right. And as we were saying before, some of these strains and some of the stuff, especially on the gray market or the black market, can be very powerful. And certain people can have psychotic
We have
reactions.
powerful stuff in the recreational market as well. But
yeah.
Let's say somebody smoked a marijuana cigarette. How long will it take to absorb into their system?
What do you mean absorb? I mean get them high, or do you mean get rid of it?
Thank you, Rob. No, exactly. Get them high. So let's say you smoked a joint, and then you decide to drive. Is it going to be an immediate effect?
Again,
when's the high? When do you peak with the high?
An easier one that we kind of have more pegged as edibles, because the way we have a general metabolism recommendation. When you smoke, depending on how much you actually inhale, how much oxygen you inhale actually with it helps, because your body needs oxygen to help move it around. So there are lots of factors that come into how much is consumed, say, per toke. but within 15 minutes, you tend to start feeling effects from most strains. There are some that are known as creepers that can take up to 30 to 40, but they're incredibly rare. They're harder to grow, and they're getting less and less popular because of the price taxes.
Good to know.
So
what about
there are things.
the vape
Vapes.
versus the cigarettes? Is there any advantage to that?
For a cleanliness discussion, yes, they are, I would say, a lot less intrusive for the public. So I do recommend tourists and things a lot of times because they're able to just step out on their patio or whatever, and they're not going to draw a lot of attention or however, because a lot of people are coming from very illegal markets.
Have you suffered or been injured by someone else's negligence? When you need a legal team that will stand up for what is right, won't give up the fight and obtain justice, call 818-886-6600. Mandel Trial Lawyers specializes in personal injury cases of all types. Whether it's a car accident, product or premises liability, dog bite, or a catastrophic injury, Mandel Trial Lawyers are there for you when the fight is worth it. Call now for your free consultation. 818-886-6600. Let the scales of justice tip in your favor.
Well, I got one more question. What if you're in a community and you don't want a dispensary? You don't want people getting high in your community. Mm-hmm. What rights do those folks have, to your knowledge?
That you can always appeal to your local government to not allow licenses. However, I would say that you should be addressing your concerns based on facts and not opinions, because a lot of this is negative stigma that is absolutely not founded. There are problems that we're working with, but we're able to come together and actually discuss it. We're going to really learn a lot about where everybody else is coming from. And I understand the smell. I understand a lot of the trash or whatever you perceive, but that's going to come along with a lot of what we're having to do with child safe packaging, where somebody opens up a box and there's 12 boxes inside. We're getting through a lot of that for the sake of safety. And so if we can come together and actually discuss what really needs to happen, we can have a lot better understanding.
Oh, that's great.
And bottom line, better to have it through a dispensary like yours than on the black market or gray market.
Yes,
no doubt.
If you can afford it, for sure, go seek out the best quality you can, because you're going to know what it's coming from, and you're going to have a way better end result.
So, Kyle, this was very informative. How can people find you and ask you questions about marijuana, etc.?
Absolutely. You can always visit me at Sweet Flower. I'm currently in Studio City at Colfax and Ventura, or you can find me at The Kyle Shelley on Twitter.
How about a phone number? Is there a phone number
or
that you give out?
An email. You can also reach me at thekyleshelley@gmail.com as well. So
thekyleshelley@gmail.com.
Yeah, phone numbers, we get kind of busy and we'll miss them. So it's always best to just, if you need to, send us a message ahead of time. Sweetflower.com will reach any of us as well. So.
Excellent. So let's move on, Rob, to the tip of the day.
Well, we've gotten so many tips from Kyle here on the marijuana thing. I will say that we usually discuss some kind of strange law that's out there, and I think for people who are high right now, this might be a real fun one, because in Blythe, which I'm sure there's all kinds of smoking going on out there in Blythe, California, you're not allowed to wear cowboy boots unless you own at least 2 cows. Is that true or false?
Well, I owned a horse. Wait a minute. I mean, they're excluding I owned a horse, Rob. So, all right, let's just concentrate on cows. I would say false.
Okay.
But
it is true. Okay. Probably not enforceable as a law, but that's probably on the books there in Blythe, California.
And a baby cow, a calf.
But if you're high and you're walking through Blythe and you get a ticket for wearing cowboy boots when you don't own cows,
you'll know why.
Yeah, it's going to be...
Dang, I want to wear my cowboy boots regardless.
All right. Well, listen, now that we are well-versed in the world of cannabis, and we can go on with our day. Kyle Shelley, thank you so much for being here. We learned so much.
My pleasure.
And if you missed any part of the show, to find out our archive shows, find Brothers on Law on podbean.com or on our website, brothersonlaw.com. And so to all of our listeners, it's time for us to go, and we want you to tune in next week at 8 a.m. right here on Brothers on Law on Go Country 105. And remember, Larry,
let the scales of justice tip in your favor.
The opinions expressed in the Brothers-in-Law show are for informational purposes only and are not a substitute for personal professional legal advice.